the grey beard, and this and all the symbols that is possible, and he will be sitting under a tree outside the village, wrapped in a cloak. So the man searches and searches, and in that the Sufi has become old, the beard has turned grey, and after moving around entire places wherever he could find, he comes back to his village, and there outskirts he sees a man wrapped in the cloth with the grey beard, long grey beard, weakened body, sitting under the tree, and he recognizes. Then he asks the Sufi, why you did not, it is you had been describing me about you, why you didn't tell me that you are the master? The Sufi responded that he was not ready to receive my message. You needed 30 years of wandering. Only then you will be able to recognize. So there is no age and time for the realization of truth, and then the moment the truth is experienced, one begins to live. His words flow out of that experience. His mannerisms, his message is the message of that experience of truth, or the message of the truth. When you listen to these words, they create some stir within you. They create a situation when you go, sometimes you experience a state of thoughtlessness. You experience a state beyond. This is what happens when you listen to the videos created by these masters, their talks. They take you, they touch you sometimes and takes you to that realm which is beyond body and mind. And when this experience accumulates and deepens in you, all of a sudden there is an explosion. This is why there has been the tradition of these talks, tradition of the silent meditations, traditions of the talks, and because of our situation that we are communicating through a medium, then this particular device I had to create, creating the silence within you. Whenever you are listening to these talks, at least for a certain period of time, you will disappear as if you do not know. You completely unattached of the environment and outer circumstances, you are transported to a state of eternal bliss. Suji creates that situation and begins to explain the story of the Bhagavad Gita. Ashtavak's 8 curves symbolizes that he is enlightened and all his energy has reached, found a free passage, no obstruction in it, and all this has happened when he was in mother's womb. Then first time it is said that he appears through the courtroom of Janak, where Janak the king had taken a vow that he wants to get enlightened. He wants to attain to the knowledge, as the word is symbolically used, but it should have been, he wants to grow into awareness or attain to enlightenment. Then the entire story of Ashtavakra comes. I will take apart Ashtavakra's guru. The first part of this text comes from Ashtavakra, the teaching to Janak. The first part of this sutra, the Ashtavakra Gita, Ashtavakra explains to Janak. Janak is one of the most open-minded students Ashtavakra could wish for. Every master wants a student who is intelligent enough, who is innocent, who is ready to receive it, who is ready to get connected to the reservoir of nectar, to that source where truth is available in its sublime form. Direct connection. Janak is a unique student that a master can aspire for. When the disciple is of the quality of Janak, the master in Ashtavakra pours his being. Remember the word, I am not saying that he gives him the knowledge, he pours his being into the disciple. And out of that an awareness is born, the experience of truth is born. And then the expression is, when the words form the expression, it becomes a scripture. There is still another event when Ashulana, a master himself, approached the Lord Parameshti in Kaivalya Upanishad to know about the truth. This came to be known as Kaivalya Upanishad, a very short yet profound scripture. It so happened that once King Janak was on a stroll, riding the horse. He saw Ashtavakra coming towards him. The king came down from the horseback, paid respect to the sage, with a full prostrate in front of the sage. However, looking at the body of the sage, King Janak's mind was filled with hate. Whenever he walked, his body used to bend at 8 places. This is the reason that Ashtavakra was given the name. He was well versed in the awareness of the self and the path of yoga as well. Through the awareness, Ashtavakra envisioned the hate arising within the king. He addressed the king thus, O king, the curse of the temple, listen to these words carefully. O king, the curse of the temple do not make the sky curved. The curves of the temple, I add to this here further, the curves of the temple, the churches and the mosques do not make the sky curved. Also the arches and the domes of the temple never create arches or domes in the sky, because the sky has nothing to do with the temple, churches or the mosque. The sky is infinite and temple is a finite matter. So too, soul and body are separate and there is no relationship between soul and the body. The soul is indestructible, eternal, while body is short-lived and finite. Evolving out of 5 elements, body is subject to decay, soul is eternal and has nothing to do with the curves of the body. Therefore, O king, the wise is guided by the soul vision, while the ignorant one has the skin vision. Aurobindo in Life Divine says that there are 2 ways of living in the world. One is the way of aspiration or emotive way, and the seat of this is solar plexus. This is what Ashtavakra says, the skin vision. The other is when your consciousness rests in the space between, just above the 1,000 petal center. It is neither of the body nor of the beyond. It is in between the two. And this is known as the spiritual vision or the soul vision. So too, when you look at the world and its phenomena with the vision of soul, only then the hate will vanish from your heart. A very important sutra. The hate will vanish when you look at the world, its phenomena, the relations, the human being from a soul vision. What is a soul vision? We are all part of one synergistic harmony. The current that flows in you also flows in me, also flows in the plants, the rivers, the flowers, the leaves, the thorns. The thorns and leaves, remember the thorns, the leaves and the flowers, the stem are all nourished and nurtured by one source, which is the roots of the plants. So if the roots of the plant is nourishing and nurturing everything that grows on the plant,